This is one of the more complex and interesting structures under any of the pyramids, and it's not something that really nobody knows about, but this was a massive structure that he cut his way into and looked at. And I think it was actually probably part of the labyrinth, if not contained an entrance to the labyrinth. Because remember, in those historical accounts, they talked about there being both a way to the pyramid that was cut underground from the labyrinth, and in another case, them talking about only one descending way into the labyrinth. And of course, Petrie, there's other accounts where he's trying to figure out if there's some other passage, but he can't. The water's so salty, and he didn't want to put his head in it, so that they're like scooping around on the floor, sticking their face in the water, trying to feel these passages in the dark with a candle, sweating like crazy. I mean, I couldn't imagine. It's insane. But inside this weird, strange structure here, there's actually one of these, essentially a box. It's called the super chamber. It's actually a single piece of yellow quartzite that weighs in the range of about 110 tons, probably more. And this is what Petrie sort of conservatively estimated it at. These roofing beams that you're looking at are also around 80 tons. Many of the other blocks that are described in these trapdoors and passages that go around are in the 20 to 50 ton range. So this is completely megalithic stuff, very much of the same caliber that you might see in the whole king's chamber structure inside the Great Pyramid. Very much the same sort of thing that you would see in the Osireion, because funnily enough, what is another structure that is made up of massive blocks of quartzite and granite is, of course, the Osireion. We already connected this to the labyrinth in the way it's constructed, but it's also connected to this structure beneath the pyramid at Hawara, because this is made up of the same stuff. That big lentil block that we just walked under here is made of quartzite. All of these pillars in here are 80, 90 tons of granite. The roofing beams are similarly sized, 80, 90 tons of granite. The walls around the Osireion are made of quartzite. Same stone, same construction style as what we're seeing beneath the pyramid and allegedly what is in the labyrinth. So there's a connection here, because this is also one of the most mysterious buildings in all of Egypt. It's up there with the Valley Temple and all of these other things. Yeah, this is simple. According to, who was it, Diodorus, I think, was saying it was simple. Yeah. So Petrie wrote a little bit. I'm going to quote to you a little bit about what Petrie said about the labyrinth. And he said, though the pyramid was the main object at Hawara, it was but a lesser part of my work there. On the south of the pyramid lay a wide mass of chips and fragments of buildings, which had long generally been identified with the celebrated labyrinth. So remember that Carl Lepsius did that diagram with all of the walls and stuff, and so Petrie's investigating that. And he says, when I began to excavate, the result was soon plain, that the brick chambers were built on the top of a ruin of a great stone structure, and hence they were only the houses of a village as they had first appeared to be. But beneath them and far away over a vast area, the layers of stone chips were found, and so great was the mass that it was difficult to persuade visitors that the stratum was artificial and not a natural formation. So he's telling us that the ruins that people had associated with the labyrinth were actually just the ruins of a village or a place that people lived, likely the quarrying village. In fact, he talks about it here, but beneath that, at deeper layers, he found a layer of stone that was massive and vast. Beneath all these fragments was a uniform smooth bed of beton or plaster on which the pavement of the building had been laid. So he's saying, Petrie thinks he found a foundation. He's saying, well, this is the pavement, this is the foundation for whatever stood on top of this. The mere extent of it proved that it was far larger than any temple known in Egypt. All the temples of Karnak, of Luxor, and a few on the western side of Thebes might be placed together within the vast space of these buildings at Hawara. We know from Pliny and others how for centuries the labyrinth had been a great quarry for the whole district, and its destruction occupied such a body of masons that a small town existed there. So they were quarrying the stone from this site for centuries. It was like the local industry. All this information and the recorded position of it agrees so closely with what we can trace that no doubt can now remain regarding the position of one of the wonders of Egypt. How far then will the remains at Hawara agree with the descriptions of the magnitude and importance of the labyrinth? We read of the enormous extent of the buildings and of their exceeding in vastness all the temples of the Greeks put together, and that they even surpassed the pyramids. Of the beauty and magnificence of the work we cannot now judge, as almost every stone has long since been broken up and removed, but the extent of the area we can measure. On tracing these signs to their limits, it found that they cover an area of about 1,000 feet long and 800 feet broad. These mere figures will not signify readily to the mind the vast extent of construction, but when we compare it with the greater of other Egyptian temples, it may be somewhat realized. On that space could be erected the great hall of Karnak, and all the successive temples adjoining it, and the great court and pylons of it. Also the temple of Mut, and that of Khonsu, and that of Amenhotep III at Karnak. Also the two great temples of Luxor, and there still would be room for the whole of the Ramesseum.